The Guardians 2025 season has had enough ups and downs. They could have their own ride at Cedar Point. But after the latest hot weekend, the Guardians need to decide which direction the next turn takes, and they got to do it soon.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in. It's a Victory Monday episode of Locked On Guardians, where we talk Cleveland Guardians for the next half hour. It's our favorite half hour because we do it every day. We cover the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything between for your Cleveland Guardians every day of the week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Justin Lada. I have been watching Guardians baseball since I was born, literally, and I have been covering their minor league system, providing prospect analysis since 2007, and co-hosting Locked On Guardians with my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis for the last almost 3 seasons now.
I just walked in off the street. I got no bona fides.
Who are you?
Kid.
Yeah.
I've been here since Locked On, expanded to baseball. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7, focused on prospects in the draft. I go back to being excited for Corey Snyder and Carlos Martinez and players like that. So it's been a long, crazy ride. So whenever people complain about offense, I'm like, oh, you sweet summer child. Apparently you didn't follow this team in the 80s.
I interviewed Tyler Naquin as an outfielder in Akron in 2013. Yeah, 2013. Maybe it was 2014. I can't remember what year it was. But yeah, I interviewed him in Akron as an outfielder. And on Sunday, I interviewed him at Lake County as a pitcher. So things go full circle. We'll get to Tyler Naquin later in the week of Locked On Guardians. But today, we have a lot of things to talk about. It's going to be a jam-packed week, so hope we're in for a good one. It's going to be an interesting 2 weeks, really. So there's not going to be any shortage of Guardians talk that's going to be interesting here, in my opinion. Today, we'll discuss Stephen Kwan playing the All-Star game and if that was a good decision. We got to talk about all these injured wrists the Guardians currently have. There's at three levels the Guardians have wrist problems right now. We'll talk about the cost of playing through injuries. Talk about the Guardians right now. This weekend was good, but they're a little directionally challenged right now. And, of course, to start off with the offense over the weekend, 18 runs against the Athletics out of the break. They were hot on offense before the break, and they're still hot. But what does that mean for the next 2 weeks? Does that really buy the Guardians a winning mindset going into the trade deadline? So before we get into all that, of course, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you're a new customer, you can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. It was a fun weekend, so on a whim, I used one of our sponsors, Game Time, to go out and buy tickets on Friday. I had a great deal on the first base side. I went to a solo game. My wife had a weekend trip to Nashville, so I went solo Friday and got to watch my boy, Nick Kurtz, and that was a lot of fun. The Guardians won. The offense was crazy, and the offense was crazy on Sunday. So that was a lot of fun. I expected all weekend long to see 2 games of Will Wilson and Jonathan Rodriguez and Brian Rocchio, and I expected them to be the offensive heroes, Jeff. That was my crystal ball for the weekend. I saw all that coming. I didn't play the lottery for some reason, though.
I do very quickly want to say a big thank you to everyone for making today's podcast your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts, and give some everydayer shout outs. Nikki VV, Sam L, maybe Andrew 1. I'm going through and just some guy from Cleveland, Kevin Klatt, and Evil Science 13 were some people I saw recently who talked about being everydayers in the comments who hadn't gotten shout outs. Well, you know what? At least you have a better sense of how things are going to work than John Harper, SUNY's freelance writer, who talked about how the Yankees would be trading for Jose Ramirez because, Cleveland's going nowhere and he could be easily talked out of as no trade. And the Yankees could send Spencer Jones with his almost 40% K rate in AA as a centerpiece. So, Yankees always doing Yankee things. That's why Miguel Andujar, we saw this week in Oakland, never netted them anything.
I will say I kind of do wonder, not that this is going to happen, but I do kind of wonder, given Cleveland's most recent direction, if Spencer Jones is...
No, he's a chaser.
The way they would go.
No, he's a chaser.
He a chaser?
He's
okay,
a chaser.
Chases out of the
they don't go for chasers. Again, we had this.
They go for chases. Now let me ask you this: has Spencer Jones been hurt at any time in the last 3 years?
No, weirdly, surprisingly healthy. I actually had him as
they don't want him.
I had him as a pitcher and not a hitter out of high school when I first scouted him because he was so big. Again, I'll reiterate, swing decisions have a lot of points to it. One of them is like if you're too passive. But Cleveland's whole thing we've seen with starting with like Nolan Jones and Alfonso Rosario up through this last
Chase out of
draft.
the zone.
It's like guys who don't chase out of the zone. They might miss in the zone. They might sit there with the bat on their shoulder on a pitch that's down the middle, but they don't chase. It's just they miss a lot in zone, and then they have big power and good pull rates, and that's the important thing.
Spencer Jones is clearly too healthy for them, though. So
yes,
they wouldn't be interested.
Yeah, we'll get to LaViolette missing the year,
hurt.
and LaViollette's gonna, we'll talk about his injury because all they do is draft guys who have injuries. We should have known he would be when Conrad went off the board. They had to take the next best outfielder with an injury.
Of course, I forgot. Yeah, and funny enough, I was interested in Conrad, but another story for another day.
Yeah, we got to talk about the huge explosion. It was a
fun weekend. I will say it was fun. Angel Martinez is on a heater, and they obviously he's got these stretches where he looks really good, and then he goes through stretches where he chases everything out of the zone, and
he hits lefties well though, and that was 2 out of 3 games against lefties again, right?
It was, and then David Fry showed up. He had a home
signs
run.
Of life for him,
yeah, that's a really good sign. I mean, he had 4 RBI on Sunday. Like if you can get that version of David Fry back, that does so much for the offense. I know it's so frustrating that he is limited to DH, but that just does so much for your offense. And the great sign of it all too is, let's be honest, the Athletics pitching staff is bad. If they had any pitching staff, they would be in a playoff race because their offense is good. I know they only scored 2 runs on Sunday, but their offense is pretty good. As young as it is, it's good. Partially because they play in a minor league park. Let's be also realistic about that. But if their pitching was halfway good, and maybe it is because they also have the unfortunate distinction of pitching in a minor league park, but their pitching is not good. Like Luis Severino has been bad, both home and away. JP Sear is not great, and then Jeffrey Springs also kind of So the Guardians did what they were supposed to do. They beat up on pitching that wasn't really all that good. They didn't even let Mason Miller come in, which, thank God, because that's not the guy you want to be facing when you're down any sort of runs. But the most impressive thing, Jeff, is that no Kwan all 3 games, which we'll talk about in the third segment. Jose had a home run on Saturday.
He was good in the first 2. No, he
was good on Friday.
He was good on Friday. He was a player. He was one of my 3 stars both Friday and Saturday, but he did nothing on Sunday. No Kwan, no Jose, all the backups in, and they got 8 runs, which is huge to me. And it was nice too. Rodriguez, for as much as I pile on him, he had a pretty okay offensive weekend. He might have almost cost them, Saccone a chance at a complete game with some defensive issues Friday. But and I'll also say this, go check out Nolan Jones' Savant page. If you haven't looked at it in a while, it's a lot of red. It is now officially more red than blue on the offensive side. His Savant page is pretty phenomenal, which, he already had the hard hit, the bat speed, the launch angle, some of the chase and the walk. But, the velo, the expected WOBA is now up touching red. Nolan Jones is starting to turn things around. He's been turning things around for a while, but it's also going to relate to some of what we talk about in segment 3 is to talk about Nolan Jones. And he got Saturday as one of the players of the game. But again, Rocchio, I think, is the guy we have to talk about because when Jason Esposito, one of their hitting coaches, went to Vandy, they brought up Junior Betances. Now, Junior Betances I'd been hearing about for years, and kind of this, I don't want to say the shine was off the star, but he was a really hot name, I'd say more like 4 years ago. And then, he was a solid coach. And then we started hearing more and more. And then it's a lot of guys going down to AAA. And, I talked about it when Rocchio came up. Did he had the highest, launch angles of his career after going down there? They really worked on Arias. They worked on changing the swing, and that's with Junior Betances. So it's not a surprise that they called him up to replace. So a lot of these guys that are performing, when we talk about Will Wilson today, we talk about Brian Rocchio, we talk about Jonathan Rodriguez, the hitting coach
Austin
for them.
Hedges, baby. RBI double.
Hedges doesn't get the Betances bump, but everyone else, just want to point out that, newest hitting part of their hitting team, Junior Betances, had a pretty big effect on all those guys.
Jose, also has a lot of affinity for Junior Betances. I mean, in the minors, and then he also threw his BP in the home run derby a couple of years ago. Yeah, and it hasn't worked out at the major league level, but the year Bo Naylor, I know, it's kind of hard to talk about Bo Naylor right now, but he struggled in AA in 2021, and then 2022 he had a great year and was back on the map. And who was their hitting coach in Akron? Junior Betances. Oscar Gonzalez was a non-prospect. I didn't think he was much of a prospect. I know he had a great 2023 or 2022. But he credited Betances for a lot of that stuff too. So there is something to that. The question is whether or not it sticks to the major league level. And Martinez you credit him for that kind of thing. And like you said, Rocchio is about as good as he's been as a major leaguer in the stretch. So that's all fun stuff. The question now, Jeff, though, is which direction does this team need to go? And should they allow the next 2 weeks to dictate that? We'll talk about that next on today's Locked On Guardians.
Supply House is the home for skilled traders. Get the supplies you need from the sites made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. I talk about every time, right over there in HVAC that seems to wait to break down until it's either the hottest or coldest days of the year. Always need new supplies, things to work on. This entire basement, go back and look at old videos. Look at what we've redone and changed here. So Supply House is for skilled traders, but it's also for everyone. So if you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And Trade Post, look for that extra edge with the free Trade Master program, offering exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals already are taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
Thank you all for being here on Locked On Guardians every day. We appreciate all the everydayers. We appreciate anybody who's listening out there. Make sure you're hitting the bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode, never miss a reaction video, you never miss videos to games, breaking news, whether it's injuries, call-ups, whatnot. We got it all. And the LB Squad Show and auto-download on all your audio platforms so you have the episode right into your feeds every single day, and that helps us out a ton. Speaking of the Guardians and helping out a ton, I don't know, Jeff, if this direction these next 2 weeks are really the best way to evaluate their path forward, because they are stuck in the worst possible spot I think they could be this year. They're not clear-cut buyers because, A, they're not in first place. And truthfully, the only time we see this team buy is when they are out in front. 2016, 2017, 2018, 2022, 2022, they didn't buy anything because they just were so young and they needed to play young players, which, they need to do again. We'll talk about that. But last year, obviously, the direction was buy. Right now, they're not really in the buyer mode. The buying market sucks. It's going to suck. But they don't also have anything to sell. And now we're at the problem point of the guys you could sell aren't going to net you much. And guess what? The guys you want to replace the guys that you're selling, well, they're all hurt. I don't know if the Guardians have like a clear-cut direction the rest of the year. They might be in a spot no one's going to like, and it's going to be a holding pattern. They might try to offload some money, which, everybody loves that. Oh, of course they want to save money. It's the Guardians. It's the Dolans. That's what everybody wants to hear, right? But they don't have pieces people want to buy. And, like let's talk about Lane Thomas, right? Lane Thomas is still in the IL, plantar fasciitis. You move him to somebody else, who wants him? And number two, the idea of clearing a spot in the outfield is to bring up Jace DeLauter. Well, guess what Chase DeLauter is doing again? So, if you trade Thomas and DeLauter is not available, who the heck is playing the outfield for you? And someone's going to say Kafis, and maybe, but they don't want Kafis to make his debut in the outfield, which, who cares, right? Just play the guy. I don't know. You got to play the guy.
The logic there is, there is a logic to that. There is a legitimate logic to that, which is the idea that you want to be most comfortable in the most simplified position to be successful. Yes. I think it's trying to thread the needle is honestly what they should be trying to do here. And it's like, okay,
the Guardians can't have any thread left, Jeff. They've been threading the needle for 10 years.
Well, that's how you have to operate when you're a team. Like, everyone complains about their lack of success with A, B, and C. And it's like, you have to give them.
It's expensive though.
When you're picking at the end of the first round, you don't get great value. It's just the way of it. Like, you're lucky to get a guy who's a part-time player more often than not. And, for as much as everyone likes to be like, they haven't developed a hitter since they developed Josh Naylor. Josh Naylor was not an everyday guy when he got to Cleveland. That is a developmental success story for them. So I think
he was also miscast as an outfielder, which goes to your point about but that goes to your point about Kafis too.
Well, it was also like they also tried him at first base and he was failing. The Padres didn't have anyone at first base at the time. They gave up Naylor and Ty France trying to find a first baseman. Cronenworth was playing second back then. they tried everyone, and those guys just couldn't hit. I mean, Naylor didn't hit his first 2-3 years in the big leagues. That was just part of the issue there. But with them, it's like you say Lane Thomas and value. Well, Lane Thomas is going to have value because the outfield market is not great. Now, what I think they might need to do is kind of look at what they did last year, which is, yeah, maybe you do try to flip Lane because he has more value, because he can play a center field, because he has had some high level production.
He's having the worst contract year ever, though. And
it doesn't matter. I mean, look at
plantar fasciitis doesn't go away. Like, I just have a hard time believing. How are you going to convince? Like, I know San Diego and the Phillies both need outfield help. Like,
exactly.
How are you going?
That's it. End of story. It's not. You're not getting much for him. Let's be honest there. Like,
you're clearing the money off the books.
But if you're not clearing the money off the books, you're getting a lotto ticket, and maybe if you're lucky, you just got your Junior Caminero. Like, that's what you do at this time of year. You're hoping for your 1 in 100 opportunity. They don't happen often, but that's why you keep doing things like that. Because with Lane Thomas right now and the situation, and like I said, then you try to thread the needle. Like I said, for me, because I don't know if Chase is going to be available, you're flipping Lane Thomas because he's on the expiring contract, and then you're calling up the Marlins about Jesus Sanchez, who can be, doesn't have the ceiling of Thomas and can't play in the center field position, but has been an above average bat like every single year and is not a free agent until 28.
Is he right-handed or left-handed?
He's a left-handed bat.
You have DeLauter for that if he's available.
But he's not available, and he's not going to be available. Like, you got to stop with if he's available. He's not available. He's never been available. He never will be available. Like, the problem with DeLauter is since college, he's not been available. Let's be honest. This is not just since he was drafted here. This is 6 years of unavailability. This is a constant. Like, he's hurt again because he's just that's where he is. Like,
so should he just throw his cell phone into the old Tangi River and say forget it?
I mean, you can keep hope alive, but like, I mean, at this point, I have about as much faith on him staying healthy as I do Daniel Espino. That's where I am with it, because it doesn't happen. It has never happened.
I have got a saucy nugget on Daniel Espino for you. I can't reveal it on the air right now on the show, but I do have a saucy hot nugget on.
I do want to say this
Daniel Espino
very quickly on Sanchez. So, 2020, we throw it out, it was 10 games. Only 60 games in 2021, a 115 OPS plus. 98 and 22 and 90. Then after that in 23, a 104, a 100 and 24 and a 104 this year. And like I said, you got him in 25, 26 and 27. And you know what teams need every year at the deadline? An outfielder. And even if things figure it out with in terms of, let's say, Nolan Jones, you put him in center, you put Sanchez in right, and Chase DeLauter hits well enough. Well, it's a nice problem to have, and you can trade from depth. And if not, at least you have someone with multiple years of control. And I wouldn't be surprised if, because Lane Thomas can handle center field and has a higher ceiling overall, if you could just do almost like a 3-team deal. Like, maybe you throw in a minor prospect, get a prospect from Lane, and then you sort it over and get someone like Sanchez. And hey, add Liam Hicks while you're at it, because this team doesn't have a catcher. Let's be honest about that. They don't agree with me, but they don't have a catcher.
Jeff's catch of the day.
Nick Fortes. I mean, that Fortes isn't good. I liked him a few years ago. He's not, but Liam Hicks has some fun numbers this year. But yeah, I think I think it's going to be what they always do, which is you got to thread that needle. You're selling the guys, and here's the thing: you should trade Santana. So I mean, Kefis it has some holes, and I'm very curious to see how well he can play. Again, if you've not followed recently, go look at Jack Caglione, because he's been arguably the worst hitter in baseball since his call up, and all he did was murder the minors. It's a huge transition, and especially when you have some holes in your game. I'm not saying that Kefis would have those same issues, but they're going to feed him sliders until he shows he can hit one. And then that's just going to be what it is. Like, you and I we're podcasters. We're not major league teams. And we know that, like, he can't hit a slider right now. So if you keep throwing him sliders, that's what teams are going to do.
And major league teams have a lot of good sliders. And they have a lot of guys who throw them, and they like to throw them.
But you still have to trade Santana, because he's not the future, and Kefis can be for this year and next. That's how you have to thread the needle. You trade Santana, you trade Thomas, you get whatever you get, and you don't throw a fit. And then you make that lateral move for someone like Sanchez, especially because, again, DeLauter's got the reason they didn't call him up now, we find out, is because his wrist was sore for weeks, and he tried to play through it. And now he's got to go see a specialist. And we got to talk about that after the break.
We absolutely will. Yeah, I like your idea. I'll finish up the trade deadline segment here in segment 3, and we'll talk about the wrist problem the Guardians have. Kwan, DeLauter, LaViolette. I'll donate my hamate bone. I'll take one for the team, guys. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Guardians. Well, we are hitting the peak moment of baseball season. The All-Star game is past, but you want to know what? Things are coming down to the wire in baseball. So if you're all about the pennant races, if you want golf on the green, I know there's been a lot of golf talk recently, FanDuel is the place for you to make the game even more exciting responsibly. If you're already following this action, you want to get in a little more, FanDuel is the way for you to get in on it. All your friends at the beach, getting sunburned. Tell your friends to wear some SPF. Guardians on Monday. It's Tanner Bybee and Tomoyoki Saganu. 8.5 runs is the over-under. Guardians favored by 1.5. The Orioles, they struggled offensively over the weekend against Tampa Bay, and the Guardians' offense was hot. So I'm going to be, bold, and I'm going to say, take the over, take the Guardians, and I'll probably cost you some money doing that. But if you're new to FanDuel, you can get some money if you make a better bet than that, because new customers can bet $5 and get $100 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com so you can get started. Jeff, I like what you said. That's the ideal scenario for me. Is, like I said, I don't like the position the Guardians are at the deadline. Because the deadline's going to suck and it disappoints me to no end. That's Major League Baseball's fault, and that's a conversation for another day. We've got to have that conversation. But a scenario where you can trade Santana, you can trade Thomas, and you can trade, I don't know, Jacob Junis. Like, trading Seawald probably is out of the question at this point, unfortunately. But trading Junis, that would all be good, while grabbing someone like a Jesus Sanchez. Like, that's what the Cubs did last year, right? The Cubs did like a soft sell, and they got Isaac Paredes. It turned into Kyle Tucker with their draft pick.
What Tampa attempted to do.
Yeah.
Morello just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, Morel wasn't good enough. Yeah, I like that approach for where the Guardians are, because you're not in a clear-cut direction right now. But the problem is they have to pick a lane, because clearly you can't expect to roll out. Like, I know they did good offensively over the weekend, and I don't want to sit there and everybody's like enjoying this series win over the Athletics, and they look good. It was a fun weekend of baseball, because it was. Like, Gavin Williams, we haven't talked about him. He pitched great on Sunday. He was probably the best. I mean,
we can talk about we didn't give Saccone that much time for his too.
No, he pitched great Friday, and the only reason the line looked bad for him is because Jonathan Rodriguez has the range of a cooked ham. So
that's an insult to cooked hams.
It is. At least those can roll a little bit better. But Rodriguez had a nice offensive weekend. Whatever. He did. So and I don't want to poo-poo what they did this weekend, because it was fun. I mean, I watched the games, and they were all fun games until the Athletics pulled away on Saturday. But it was Enright and then Colby Allard, which we kind of expected. But you can't expect, though, to roll out a 7-8-9 of Will Wilson, Austin Hedges, Brian Rocchio, or even, let's add, Jonathan Rodriguez. You can't be doing that 5 days a week and think, yeah, we're going to be wild card contenders. Like, no matter how many good, like, you can have one or two good games doing that, but you're not going to do that for the next 3 months. That's not what the Tigers did last year, right? The Tigers had
kind of is. No, that's exactly what they did last year. They had Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, and then a bunch of fluff. That's exactly what they did.
No. Zach McKinstry was good last year. Spencer
he was up and down.
Good second half.
They were.
Tracy Sweeney had a heater,
but not towards the end. He was all defense, no bat. We talked about this when they got the postseason. They were a mirror of the Guardians of a year ago, where they had like 3 hitters and then nothing else.
They rode that for a little bit. The Guardians should be in a better spot than that if you count Kwan, Jose, and if you bring up any prospect that might have a shot. The thing I don't like is, like, Nolan Jones is playing just well enough to keep his job, and other guys
he's beyond that now. I mean, he would be playing for a lot of teams. He's doing enough around the edges.
Well, he's not hurt, so maybe he could do it for another team. The Guardians, though, everybody was up in arms over this over the weekend. Was Kwan playing in the All-Star game? I got to be honest, people are like, oh, it's not a good look.
It's an exhibition game. Why is he hitting and trying to steal bases in an exhibition game if he then can't play? No, I agree it's a bad look, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has some teammates who are really annoyed with him right now, because I know I would be.
I don't buy that. I don't buy it at all. I think it's the All-Star game. It's your second chance to go. He was the only Guardians representative because Jose pulled out. If he pulls out, they got to send somebody else last minute to Atlanta, and it's probably Class A, and he probably already had plans. And
So
I'm not saying that's
go and don't
to
play. I mean, every year there's guys who don't get in the game.
Yeah, there is. It's just it's I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. Truthfully, I don't care.
I do. I have a huge problem with it. I think it's, as a player, you owe your team, not the exhibition side of it. It's a worthless game, and he played in a worthless game and hasn't been able to play in 3 games since. To me, that's a huge deal.
Stephen Vogt is pretty confident he's going to play Monday. He did have to have a shot. I think the idea was that he was not going to make it worse by getting 1 at bat or 2 at bats in the exhibition game. Whatever. He's young. He's a second All-Star game. The guy. I know you don't like the All-Star game, but the players like it because it's a reward for the hard work. They have fun. They get paid for it, which is good. I think he deserved to have that respect, and obviously that's going to help him get paid too, right? So, I have no problem with it. I have huge problems.
I think it's a huge mistake.
We know you have lots of problems, but that's not the point. I don't think the wrist was going to get any worse by playing in it. Like he
could have got better if it rested. I mean, that's how you fix a wrist, is rest. It's not go out and swing a baseball bat at a very fast object, potentially getting hit again and trying to steal a base, which is not helping it either.
This team never stops anybody from playing through injury. Now, the question here is this. Like, I don't want to get too upset about it because I don't have all the medical information. I don't have access to all the conversations they had with him. So I'm not going to give you a hard opinion on it if I don't have, the entire context. All I know is the wrist is hurting. He's not playing 3 days. That's all I know. Same with DeLauter, too. We don't know the situation. DeLauter easily could have not told them because he knew he was so close to being called up that he thought, okay, if I play through it, maybe I'll be fine. They'll call me up.
I think that's why he didn't get called up, is they were monitoring it. That makes that whole situation.
I think if they knew and they let him play through it, that's even worse. I think it's worse that they let DeLauter play through it than Kwan playing in the All-Star game, because you want to know what? Kwan, he's got, some injury history there, but not obviously the extent of DeLauter. And DeLauter's your future. How can you let Chase DeLauter play through a wrist issue with all the problems he's had?
Because he's never healthy. You got to let him play through it and see if maybe he can play, because he's never not healthy. The dude is never healthy. He doesn't have a moment he isn't beat up.
Kwan is going to be gone in 2 years, and DeLauter is supposed to be your future. So letting Kwan play the exhibition game doesn't mean as much to me, but DeLauter being part of the future is the fact that you've worked so hard to protect DeLauter, and we want to build him up thoughtfully, and we want to make sure he's ready and available. And then you're like, well, okay, you can play through this wrist injury. How stupid is that? How could you sit there and out of one side of your mouth talk about, well, we want to build him up, we want to make sure he can play 4 or 5 days a week, so that means we have to sit him every couple of days and make sure he's responding well to that volume. And then to find out he has a wrist injury he's been playing through. If you knew about that, that's ridiculous. You can't say one.
It wasn't an injury. It was soreness. What he had soreness he was playing through, and it got worse. I mean,
you can't say one thing and do another. You can't say
you 100% can't. Kwan had an injury. The other guy had a wrist soreness.
They're saying it and they're not following through. Again, this is actions and not words. They're saying we're being cautious with Chase, but then you're letting him play through an injury, which, by the way, he's got to go see a hand specialist now. And if he needs hamate bone surgery, forget it. I'm not even.
Well, I don't think it's that. I think you're jumping, because if it was hamate, he wouldn't have played. He wouldn't have played if it was hamate.
He could throw his phone in the Olentangy if it's hamate.
I mean, he's just never healthy. So, he's got to play through injuries, because otherwise he's never going to play. That dude is never not hurt.
On his end, yes, I agree. But on the Guardians' end, no, because, Jeff, we've seen this. We've seen them let Jose Ramirez play through injuries he shouldn't play through. They just, Kwan has done it too. But they've pulled him more often than not. And I want to say this too about Jose. We talked about this off air.
Yeah.
Jose is a unicorn as a player. He's also a unicorn when it comes to health.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, that guy came back from his own hamate surgery and then had a grand slam the first game with no rehab. But he's also recovered from injuries. For a guy who's a 5'9" ball, who plays with his hair on fire, that guy, A, knock on wood, stays healthy. B, when he does have injuries, he recovers through them and he looks great on the other end, which almost never happens. That he is 100% a unicorn. Chase DeLauter is not. If they found out there was a wrist issue, I understand Chase saying, I want to play through it because I know I'm getting close. I'm never healthy. It's not as bad as what I've already had. But the Guardians, for sitting there saying, we want to build his volume up, we want to be careful, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, well, play through the wrist injury. I don't know how you can get mad about.
If there's x-rays and there's no damage, there's no swelling, there's nothing, and you're just like, It's just random pain. Like we all have random pain sometimes. It's like,
yeah,
okay.
he took and that's the thing I don't want to get too up in arms about Chase either, is because this, for as much as we're like his body can't handle it, he got hit on the wrist in batting practice. That could happen to anybody. This isn't like a soft tissue injury. It's not a knee. It's not a foot. It's not a core muscle. Like, he got hit in batting practice. That happens. And unfortunately, of course, because he's Chase DeLauter, it happened to him.
Yeah. Like I said, it's, what are you gonna do? He's a player that was never healthy in college. He hasn't been healthy for more than 2 months in the pros. Like, that's just, but counting on him is kind of foolish. Like, we all get suckered in by the talent, just like they did. And, they keep drafting injured players. Like, that's what they do. Just, everyone keeps, we're running a long time here. It's like, very quickly, Jace LaViolette isn't going to play this year. For those who missed the information.
We knew that.
We knew that.
Locked On Guardians, you knew that.
Yeah. And it's official now. And it's because, and everyone keeps bringing this up. This is not true. He did not hurt his hand at the start of the year, and it affected his whole year. It affected one game. He hurt his hand at the very end of the year. It sounded like he had some kind of procedure, and then immediately played afterwards and made it worse.
The next day, yes. Which is why the Guardians took him. Oh, he wants to play through injury. We're going to see he's injured and he wants to play through it. We're taking that guy. 100%.
And then he made it worse. So now he's not going to play this year. So for a guy who needs some work on his swing, he now misses this entire year. So he's going to probably start next year in low A, if I had to place a bet, and have to work.
He's playing the SEC. He better start in high A.
I wouldn't. I mean, after a year of struggles and a decline in ability and missing time with injury, he's probably going to start in low A. I mean, they start a lot. I mean, Knapsick played in the ACC. He started down. Tommy Hawk played in the SEC. He started out in there.
Christian Knapsick doesn't have the upside of.
He has a better swing than LaViolette had this year. He needed less work on his mechanics.
He's not as high upside of a prospect.
I know, but it shouldn't be about upside. It should be where the player is, right? Like,
you got to figure out. I don't know. Low A is just so bad. It's a bad.
It is, but you're trying to build up his confidence after a year where his confidence was a bit shot. So it makes even more sense to put a player.
Using the word build up, because it doesn't mean anything. We've clearly shown that doesn't mean anything.
No, confidence matters. Like, that's one of those things for some players. I mean, we're seeing it with Rocchio now. We saw it with Jimenez over the years. Like, there are certain guys that they have to believe they can do it, or they don't do it. Like, that type of stuff matters. The mental side of it is 100% there. And then that stuff matters a lot. And that's the thing too, with the Chase DeLauter. It's like, he might even for a bit, like, maybe he didn't report it right away because it's, like, the confidence on the injury. Like, oh, it's just like an ache and pain and I'm fine.
And then Juan Brito, probably done for the season. He's going to be out multiple weeks with his hamstring strain. Lost season for Brito. He was good when he was healthy. And now you're not going to see him probably in 2025. So that's why I don't like where the Guardian situation is going, regardless of how good this weekend was. All right, we'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk Guardians, Orioles. This should be another good series for them. We'll talk about why it's okay to let some players go. We'll talk about Tyler Naquin a little bit this week. And we'll talk trades, of course, this week. Who hangs up first? Hopefully not you. Come back and stick with us.
Thank you for joining us, and go Guardians, go.